Hi, this is Azar. I am recording this at 3:07 a.m. This is Dezi's opinions of some people as of February 19th of when I wrote this. It may be a bit long, so there's going to be an approximate timestamps up on screen if you want to just skip to those specific characters. Dezi is canonically recording this into an old device that takes the vibrations of your voice and carves it into a wax cylinder. Technically, it's supposed to sound a bit different than what I can do right now, so just imagine. Isn't that great? Imagine. Desi made this out of boredom and not wanting to go out. However, he's recording this in hopes that it passes over to the next loop too, so he doesn't forget anyone again. Yay! Or it may help him. That's his purpose. Like, hopefully, no one gets forgotten. And yes, yes. God, fucking hell. Valley is a living painting that fell from Rift Zero about a week after me and most others did. However, I've been kind of losing track of time, so it might have been longer. My whole experience with Valley has been a bit strange. The way I felt immediately fond and close to them wasn't natural, and it scared me, like many other things I don't understand. But it didn't affect me too much, and they were nice. So I thought that it was my intuition saying, hey, be friends with this person because they're cool. But something happened recently that. Or I did something recently that I normally wouldn't have done. Valley had run after Tundra after he had tried to burn down their house and restaurant. I didn't see them for a while after that, and I was getting, increasingly anxious. uh, Finally, Valley had returned, and they pulled me aside and told me that they had murdered him. Tundra was dead, and I was the first person to know. I honestly felt like I was gonna throw up, and I started to panic. A lot! But when I looked at Valley, that familiar feeling crept up on me again. A sense that made me want to stick by them. And usually I would have. I don't know, but I know for a fact I wouldn't have knowingly lied to people's faces. I wouldn't have kept the fact that Tundra was dead a secret. I wouldn't have been the one to suggest that in the first place. But I did. And again, the fact that I had this strong and strange feeling towards Valley scared me, and it's become a problem. Not until later did I learn that I, in fact, did know Valley before this. This whole world, it had looped back to the start, courtesy of Nikolai. But even he was surprised that anyone from before had any lasting feelings or memories. Me and Valley must have been extremely close beforehand. I want to get to know them again. Hopefully, if I do, then I'll actually have a reason I want to protect them. Kale is a small, moth-like being with humanoid features. While I also had a familiar feeling and fondness for her, it wasn't as intense as Valley's. Kale is a bright person to be around, although she does call me son, boy, in other terms older folk would call far younger ones. From what I understand, Kale is around 25 years old, and I'm 20. So it's certainly interesting. Kale seems to find this funny, and it doesn't do any harm, so I'll get used to it eventually. It'll be fine. However, another thing I find strange is Kale coming up to ask if I think it was if, Kat was my stepmother, and then assume that Document was my mum. For the record, neither of them are my family. I thought it was clear that I didn't know anyone here when I first woke. Maybe it's just another joke, and I shouldn't let it bother me that much. It just kind of reminds me of my actual mom and mother. I found that Kat has been one of the more sensible people to talk to here. She is, a humanoid, but it isn't human. My first exposure to Kat was the first day most of us got here. Kat was one of the ones who officially asked me to help figure out what's happening exactly and how we can get everyone back home safely. Apparently, I look smart, since Kat wasn't the first one to mention the possibility of me helping. I agreed. I mean, what else can I do? Lay down and say I don't care about people's safety? We haven't actually talked about any of my discoveries or contributions. What would there be to talk about anyway? That I holed myself up and created this recording machine? That I had no part in any of the translations or discoveries so far? I'm sure Kat has already realized I'm not as useful as I seem. However, we did talk about some other things recently. I found out that the planet Kat and Document are originally from was named Earth. It came as a surprise to me because, well, the only Earth I knew was the one that had been abandoned in my grandparents' time. I don't really know much about what happened, but what I do know is that it wasn't able to sustain any sort of life on it anymore. That Earth had the same spelling as Cat's Earth did. Earth. And they were both in the Milky Way galaxy. But Cat and Document were still living on it. And not only them, but many other living organisms. I learned a little later that their world had been, quote, eaten, unquote. So it was entirely gone. This gives some support to the hypothesis that we are all from different dimensions? Universes, maybe? It's honestly incredibly weird to think about. I'm used to seeing a wide variety of species, so I guess I just wasn't all that taken aback by how different everyone is. Also, side note about Cat, they claimed that a thing called a sperm whale is real. I mean, I guess it could be real where Cat came from, but there is no way a creature like that exists where I'm from. Cats says they sleep like vertically and drew a picture, and they look weird and strange, and they should not be existing. Document is a humanoid that came from the same place as Cat. They describe themselves to have been made for information storage. They were designed to have a perfect memory for that express purpose. However, they have stated that their memory has suffered a bit since coming here. I used to live with Document alongside Cat and Dusk. However, most of my time there was spent searching for civilization instead of in the shelter we had built. And even when I had come back after my expedition, I had met Valley, and shortly after decided to live with them when they offered me a room. Document is, in my opinion, a calm person. It's easy to talk to them and tell them what's on my mind. Although, I do feel bad that I've only really ever talked to them about horrible news and my personal struggles. It seems unfair. Our first real conversation was on some trees, if I remember correct. Document had told me about their life. They were in a containment facility, and it sounded incredibly restricting. They then told me that they had killed their manager, I think. To be frank, that statement frightened me. Who wouldn't be? But the more we talked, the more I learned. While no one deserves to die, they were a terrible person. Document expressed that they didn't think killing was alright in any sense, and they wouldn't do it again. This recount may be a little bit wrong. I'm struggling to remember the details of the interaction. But I know at the end, Document asked me about my world. I think I gave them some details. When I got to the subject of Elias, I couldn't bear to think about it, so I admit I redirected a bit harshly. As I said before, I trust them, at least enough to tell them about what I'm going through. But I would like to get to know Document a little better. Art was a 14-year-old mouse humanoid when he first came through the rift. He had his birthday not too long ago, just a few days before mine, actually. Although I missed his party, I did give him something when I saw him the last time. But I need to get him something else as an apology. Art is a very optimistic boy. He has a love for anything to do with detectives and solving a mystery. He kind of reminds me of a younger me, as old as that sounds. I wasn't as into detectives as him, but I really liked putting my mind to work on creating solutions for problems. Most of the time, those problems had something to do with engineering. But not all. I also really liked the few mystery books I read. Maybe I should make a fun little mystery for him to solve sometime. If we have time. After his birthday, he had gone missing at some point. It was actually right after Valley told me about the situation. We found an item that we thought might have been Art's near Cove's tea shop up on the mountain. He had apparently been gone for a while before that. I was honestly expecting the worst. I was scared that he was gone, but I'm happy that's not the case. Art was found by Document, I think. He had gotten stuck in the native's cave above the crystal, or heart in the middle. He seemed a little hurt, but he was alive. Art and I talked about the loop the other day. Art knows that Nikolai had reset the world after everyone else had died, and he knows that he wasn't there last time. We eventually agreed that we would do everything we could to progress our search for an exit in this loop and hope the next one was better. But I honestly hope that we'll be able to escape this time around. I don't want more people disappearing and new people being subjected to this. And I don't want Art to die. I don't want him to be put through this time and time again, and it's not his responsibility to worry about creating a solution for this. I should have been focused on getting us all out. I won't waste any more time. I just need to figure out where we left off last time, and where to go from here. I believe Tundra was one of the people I had met on my first day here. and unfortunately, the first death. He was a humanoid dog. He had a mask on, most of the time in the shape of a canine. I hate to speak ill of the dead, but I can't leave how he was out, else there would not be much to say. Tundra was an extremely ornery person. Even on my first encounter, he was just trying to get a rise out of people. Minor jabs or hits were a constant action you would have to watch out for when he was around, as well as property damage. I don't believe he ever harmed anyone fatally, though. I had tried pulling him aside once because I wanted to understand what was going on and why he was constantly hating on everything. And all he said was that he liked doing it. I admit, after a little, I got fed up and walked away. I ignored him most of the time, but he got on my nerves. A lot. I wish I had tried to understanding him just a little bit more. He never should have suffered the way he did, and he never should have died. I regret the last thing I had said to him was just a nasty name thrown his way. He had those who cared about him. Rexford, Lapis, and Document are a few that I know of. I wish I could have talked to them to get some sort of message in this section as a more positive send-off. I may someday. I would hate for the only thing known about Tundra to be just my less than stellar opinion. Ajax is a person I haven't personally met yet. However, I was told that he was saved from the test tube inside the native people's cave. I was told that last time they weren't so lucky and we ended up finding them dead there. I'm glad we were able to get them out. I don't believe I've told anyone this in detail, but I have a singular, sharp memory from the first time we went into this world. That was of two people dead in the same test tube. I don't remember if anyone else was there. I assume I was too focused on the sickening sight in front of me. One was a person I knew extremely well, Elias, and the other, I can only assume, was Ajax. If that is true, I don't really know how I'm going to act when I see him. Nikolai was another person I had met the other day. I'm not actually sure what species he is, however, he's humanoid at least. He had told me the other day that the marks on him are rifts. It stretches out to a good portion of his body, including an arm and half of his face. However, I was told that these rifts are a side effect of using his power. From what I understand, he has the ability to pause or reverse time. He had reversed time the first time when most other people had died already. But Nikolai said that this wasn't a perfect reversal. Not his exact wording, but close enough. This is why some people have had feelings that were linked to what had happened, and some memories. I actually didn't have my first memory until he had described what had happened in the test tube. It wasn't a pleasant experience at all. I had already had a bad feeling about the test tube. However, I remembered a gory scene, that of Elias and Ajax laying dead in there together. I decided to leave Valley and Nikolai to talk. I wasn't really paying attention after that anyway. I haven't talked with him since, so it might be good to ask him more about where we left off last time, so I can pick up what was left. Now for Elias. He is not present, not this time. He was from my universe. We had met on the same ship we were employed at, and we had become best friends. He was more chill than me most of the time, but he was still so fun to be around. It felt like I could tell or do anything with him, and it would just feel right. Eventually, he was promoted and moved ships to start running a team. We would send each other voice messages, kind of like this one, telling each other about everything we've been up to. They take a while to transmit when ships are far away, so sometimes I would have to wait days or weeks to hear from him. It wasn't uncommon. At one point, however, I stopped hearing from him altogether for a few months. I don't think I've ever been so stressed out that I was then. That night, before being transported to this world, was when I heard the news. He had died. Apparently something had malfunctioned on his ship. No one else, just him. Everything was blurred together after that. I eventually went to sleep because that was the only thing I could do. When I woke up, I had a bit of a headache, and I was on this planet. I thought it was a nightmare at first, but evidently it's very much reality. I thought it would be the last time I heard his name. No one here knew me or who Elias was. I could grieve on my own time without anyone knowing. But then, some books showed up mentioning him, and me and some others we knew, and some we didn't. At first, I blamed this on Coven Valley, thinking it was some kind of sick joke or poor attempt at making me talk about him, because they were the only ones with access to the wish mentioning Elias's name that I had thrown into the wish fountain. But the books were actually some from the first time we had went through this, and they had somehow ended up appearing again. It's kind of difficult to deal with the knowledge that in the past I had gotten to see Elias again, even for a brief period of time. But I was told that it wasn't truly Elias, and the books back this up. In a book I apparently wrote, Elias could not speak. Sure, he was somewhat quiet, but he would always talk to me. Nikolai told me that his body was being controlled by something else, which is a whole other difficult pill to swallow.